May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, is now on the air. May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings is now on the air.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
We welcome you to the World Awakenings podcast. Before we start, we'd like to tell you about a special ebook written by the show's host, Carl Gruber. The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. The concise 32-page 3 Pillars ebook will teach you how to become a successful and consistent co-creator of your life path with the law of attraction. Yes, you can manifest the life you truly desire, and the ebook is absolutely free. Simply go to Carl's website, carlgruberlifecoach.com. That's KARLGRUBER lifecoach.com. Click on the header title About Me and get the free download today. Carl Gruber's free ebook, The 3 Pillars, will positively change your life.
Welcome to the podcast that asks the question, why now more than ever are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, enlightening, and metaphysical? World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. I'm your host, Carl Gruber, and for almost 4 years now, this show has brought to your eyes and ears some of the world's top experts and teachers on non-dualistic spirituality as taught in A Course in Miracles, Reiki energy healing, trance channels, mystics, law of attraction principles, quantum physics, and more. Based here in the United States, but with a global audience, I invite you to please click that subscribe button below to help keep the show going and so you never miss a single episode. So my guest today is Amirah Hall, who is a trained clairvoyant life coach, spirit medium, and quantum healing pioneer, and also the author of the books Manifesting Miracles 101 and The Essential Guide to Spiritual Awakening. She has personally experienced overwhelming burnout and exhaustion from constantly being knocked down. However, she went on to experience a miraculous inner transformation following her own near-death experience. Amirah has made it her life's mission to assist others in waking up from the state of sleepwalking through life. Well, Amirah, welcome. Wow, this is so awesome. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
Thank you so much, Carl. It means a lot to me to be here with you also.
Well, I have to say that you and I exchanged a couple of emails, and I love how you sign your email psychic, but not psycho.
Well, for a lot of years, I was kind of a closet medium or a closet psychic. And I started out in the corporate world here in the US. And honestly, it wasn't, and even today, I think there's not a water cooler conversation usually about psychics, unless you've got a close friend that you reveal some of your interests. But yeah, so I hid it, and it kind of bit me in the butt many times when I would call out a sales manager or somebody that wasn't telling the truth per se, or seeing that, it wasn't about the numbers or clients' needs. It was very, very helpful. So I have spent a lot of time helping professionals refine their own clairvoyance, their own intuition, and especially these days, right? With the topsy-turvy world we find ourselves in, I think there's nothing more important is that refinement of that spiritual ability.
Well, and I think that what you're saying is very, very important. And two, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I have the show now, because what you do is so much more well received, because people are starting to understand that there's so much more in the unseen realm. But what I want to do right now is you have an amazing story. You're in an amazing place and life journey that you've come to be at this point. Tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are now, and this incredible spiritual and psychic awakening you had after a near-death experience. Wow.
Yeah, I guess that would be the real kick in the cosmic ass that I got. But I'm a Canadian. I was born and raised in Canada, and I came to the US, and I was married at the time. And what happened was I got to a point of finally getting my legs or my feet into a career and a path. Mm-hmm. And I was a type A personality. I was a hard driver. I was going to school, getting a bachelor's degree, and I ended up graduating magna cum laude. Then I was a number in the top 10 in a sales team for the nation for technical sales. And guess what? My marriage started to crumble. Mm. Right at the same time, my father passed away. And all of those emotional upheavals, I soon found myself diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And that was in 1991, Carl. That was before the internet. The kind doctor, told me I had two choices: death or wheelchair. And along with chronic fatigue, a tremendous amount of depression sort of keeps you pretty unmotivated and, just incapacitated. Well, after crying for about 2 weeks, I had a few friends at that time, because I hadn't been in the US very long. I had no family. I had no support system. And so I luckily, or by the grace of God, my guides, I found a internist that said, you've got some emotional challenges. Mm. And it was an actual astrologer that connected me with somebody that could, guide me to him. In fact, I didn't find him naturally in terms of going to a doctor and getting a referral from my medical system. So long story short, I started working. A friend referred me to an acupuncturist. Mm-hmm. I figured because I was so debilitated, I needed something to get it flowing. And so she said, this acupuncture gave me the most important gift. And I think it's relevant for right now, what we've been going through over the past 2 years. And that doctor said, well, we don't diagnose it as a disease or an illness. We discuss it or consider this blocked energy.
Yes.
And so it's the whole being. And that was my first introduction to alternative medicine. And that was the key for me. Acupuncture, chiropractic. I would get massage. I started yoga. I started working with a Far Eastern master. I really, the part of the doctors, my acupuncturist orders were, I was living in San Diego at the time, to go sit in the beach for an hour a week. Mm-hmm. And no reading, no nothing, no music, just to decompress, because my mind was so fast and so I was tripping myself up. So that it took quite a while. It was probably 9 months to a year. And I think this is so important because that doctor gave me freedom from the system. And I think what we're facing right now is so many people afraid and believing someone of whatever picture. I call it a picture. It's like a frame of something that they put a label on. And what I've come to understand, as soon as we put a label on it, we lock it. We are not open then to the magic of the universe or the twists and turns and the answers and solutions and it changing.
I've heard this about that a diagnosis can set a paradigm into your subconscious and your mind, and well, it must be true. And so,
and we make it so. We make it our reality.
if you have 6 months, well, you only have 6 months to live. Well, a lot of people actually believe it and they will die. But I'm sorry, I just
No, that's a perfect segue because so many people are just sort of, incapacitated with fear right now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not really lifting. I mean, I would say more and more people are sort of waking up to the lies, the betrayal, the sense, the illusion, it's like the Wizard of Oz behind the veil, stepping through and seeing, oh, it's not what they said it was. Okay. So it took me some time. It took me some time to start rebuilding myself. I didn't go back into I soon lost my job. So in terms of spiritual awakening, I'm noticing that there's a trend with people. It's usually a loss, a tragic loss. It could be a death of a loved one, a job, a marriage, sudden changes. And it, trips us out and, all the circuits break. So I had to work on my physical body. And that was the first thing. Well, I guess you could say the spiritual happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting better and I was getting stronger, and I was struggling as a solopreneur and an artist. I was making designer jewelry, and I was selling international. It was going great, but there just wasn't enough money. So I went back into corporate, but I thought, okay, I'm not going to do the same mistake, right? I'm saying this because I know many of us get tricked but we trick ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I thought I was strong enough. I figured, okay, I'm going to meditate in the morning. I'm going to create a job where I get to work at home. And this was 1996. I was one of the first adopters of, work from home. It was called telecommuting back then.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there I was. I got to go swimming at lunch, which was my part of my therapy, and meditate and take things. The pace was so much, better. But I started making quite a lot of money. And I'm like, I'm loving how I'm manifesting. I was really cooking. And I was, into six figures in the late 90s. And then all of a sudden something was missing. And I was something was like a little, like, what is this? Something's missing. And I started hearing this little song. It was like a little chant. And it was like a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And it kept repeating itself. And it was very clear. It was very short and sweet. Didn't know what it was. And a friend gave me a brochure and she said, maybe you should check this out. It was to the Amazon. It was a trip to work with a shaman.
Ooh, yeah, that's interesting.
And so I did. And I cried all the way there. I sobbed on the airplane. I had strangers holding me. It was this poor guy next to me. He's like, I thought I was going to die. I knew absolutely without a doubt I was going to die. And it wasn't, I had traveled a lot in the airplanes. It wasn't that. I didn't know really. Well, I didn't know what ayahuasca was. I didn't know what any of that was back there then. And back in 97, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't a commercial, and a fad. It wasn't a spiritual fad. So in working with the shaman, I had a vision of shooting through the cosmos, through a stargate. And all I knew was that I was a star seed that came to Earth in early Egypt. And it didn't look like Egypt as we know now. It seemed a little bit north. It might have been maybe Iraq or somewhere in that area. And I knew in that moment I needed to go to Egypt. And so a year later, I actually came back to the US. I didn't have the funds to go to Egypt, but I told myself, well, if I get another tax return, then I'll take that money and go to Egypt. Well, sure enough, I got the tax return. So almost a year later, I found myself in Egypt and had an amazing, amazing spiritual journey that was transformative and accelerated my spiritual abilities. I remember going to the Dendera temple, and it was, I could hear these celestial music.
Wow.
It was kind of like angel chants or something like that. And so I started looking around, looking for speakers. I mean, it was so loud and so crisp. And then I looked on the floor. I mean, we're talking these walls are 3 foot thick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking for cords or cables for the speakers, because this is primitive country. Okay, they're not wireless. And then I went out into the main part of the temple, and I asked the temple guardian, I said, excuse me, where's the music coming from? He started shouting at me in Arabic and asked me to leave. And I later found out that Egyptians really don't like to talk about these types of things, because they're very respectful of the dead, the unseen. Stuff happens there all the time. And they just, I don't know if they're afraid of it themselves. But I went out, and I remember talking to one of the guides on the group. And she said, oh yeah. We've heard many, many things here, and other places too. So that was pretty magical. Statues would smile at me in Egypt. I remember Sekhmet speaking. We spoke earlier about the feline.
Yeah.
And Sekhmet is the lion. She has a lion face and a female body. And I remember going by her statues, and at one point she holds a staff and she would lift her little hands up. It was so subtle. You look like, am I losing my mind? I remember the little whiskers just turning up on the sides, and
Wow.
that was a smile. And so those kinds of magical things, not to mention transformation in probably every angle. But I'm so excited about it, Carl, because I'm going back for my 13th trip this year.
I saw on your website you're doing an Egypt trip. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm taking a group, and it will be as magical as mine, but you don't have to have okay, I'm leading into the next part.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So I was, as I said earlier, making jewelry at the time. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be incredible if I could score some antiquities, some beads? Because we had seen all these amazing beads in the Cairo Museum. And I thought, man, that would be fascinating to incorporate into my jewelry work. So at the very last day of my trip, my friend had brought me to a factory where it's a home/factory, okay, all together. And they were perched right on the edge of the Valley of the Kings. So their house is built on the mountain, so to speak. And all of the residents would be digging in the night from their back wall into the mountain, hoping to find a tomb, happy to find treasures.
Oh, wow.
And so in the daytime, they would hang up a carpet on the wall so you couldn't see the hole or the doorway where they were digging. So I did find this guy, and he had some beads. And so I went to pay. Well, normally in Egypt, when you pay, and especially if you're friends with somebody, I was considered a guest, not just a customer. And they would bring you water or a Coca-Cola or have some tea. And it's quite a ritual, it's sort of a visit. You don't just pay and run through to there. Mm-hmm. Well, this time, because I was a special guest, they brought out a joint. And I said, well, thank you, but I don't smoke. Mm-hmm. And I don't do drugs. So it was like, I tried pot a few times, nothing really, it didn't do anything for me. So I just didn't want it. Well, Muhammad erupted in a rage, and he was screaming half Arabic and half English. It's the best. It's the best. I insulted him. Okay. So I'm like, oh, geez. And I'm the only female. I'm the only American. I'm like, oh boy, what have I done here? I want to get out of here safely, and I just don't know where this is going to go. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I've smoked a couple times, so I'll just, indulge them. Mm-hmm. So I'll be gracious and participate. So the joint went around about twice. There were about 10 guys that just appeared out of nowhere, and everybody, went around the room, the circle, and it was time to go. And everybody popped up and they were walking out the door, and I couldn't leave my chair. I was pinned to the chair. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my legs. And I found myself standing behind myself.
Ooh.
And I was pretty concerned and frightened by this. And so I don't know if I was verbal, because I don't recall that, but I could see everybody that was in the room. It looked like I was in a Circuit City, where they have different TV channels all on and they're all playing in different, that's what it was like to me, where I could see all of their lives revealing. And it was, I guess you could say trippy, haha. So I put my hands out thinking, if I just got some water, I'm standing behind myself. I need to stay in my body. I need to stay in my body. And so I just had my hands here when my friend had filled me with my hands with water. And they got right about here. And I remember the last thought I had was, oh shit, my mascara is going to run.
Oh, no.
Oh, what a tragedy for a female. Yeah.
A true lady.
Oh, geez. And so I can laugh about it today, but that was it. Lights out for me. They told me that I collapsed on the floor, fell out of the chair. My body stiffened and the heart stopped and my breathing stopped. And they were pounding my chest with all their might to, I call that Egyptian CPR, get my heart going, village CPR. And they dragged me out from under the arms, dragged me outside. My feet apparently left trails in the sand as they were hailing a taxi, which is a pickup truck, a small pickup truck. There's like benches on the back of the cab or the, what do you call it? The bed. Mm-hmm. And then in the cab, they had me perched up with my head out the window. My friend was sitting in between. And then of course there was the driver, and they were barreling down the road. And my next thought as I was waking into my body was I needed a bathroom.
Oh, no.
So I didn't know. I was completely calm. I struggled, Carl. It was like I couldn't get in my body. Have you ever put on a wetsuit?
Yes, I've done some triathlons, yeah.
And it's yucky. It's not easy to do, right?
Right.
I struggled and struggled. It felt like it was thick. It was sticky. It was heavy. And that's the feeling I had trying to get back in my body.
And back into density.
Yes. And it felt like quite a while. And the light was incredibly bright. It was about noon, and it was a bright, of course, sunny day in Egypt. And I struggled to open my eyes. When I could hear the noises, and I finally touched my friend's arm. I said, "Where are you taking me?" Mm-hmm. He said, "Well, to the hospital." And my next thought was, oh God, that place will kill me because we're in a village. We're outside the Valley of the Kings. It's extremely primitive. Well, that's another problem because in the village, there's no real toilets, especially for Westerners. So it's kind of a comedy now as I look back on it. They tried to find me a Western style bathroom and toilet, and that place was his brother's. And so, there was a part here that I wanted to go back to, and it was as I was coming back into the body, before I began to open my eyes, the picture I had was shooting through the cosmos like a star. Wow. Or a comet. And I love the picture behind you. Because as I got closer and closer, like at first I saw this little dot, where am I going? And it was shooting like the speed of light through, darkness with lights around me, stars. And then I found the globe, or earth, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like you have behind you. And then when I saw how big it was, the next thought was, oh my God, it's so big. How am I going to find me?
Wow.
And that's when I heard the Arabic language, and I didn't know the language. So it was like, well, where did I leave myself? But it was almost like that was a GPS for my soul.
Yeah, yeah.
And a trigger. Yeah. So, still, I didn't have my land legs for quite a while. They had to carry me up the stairs. It was 3 flights to the flat, and they got me into the Western style bathroom, and I pulled my skirt down around my legs, thinking I'm all, proper, because again, that is a cultural thing. My friend was a male, and males are not allowed to be with females in these private spaces because they think we're having sex, right? That's the absolute go-to where they went. So he's sitting on the edge of the bathtub, and tears are just streaming down his face. He goes, "You don't understand. You don't understand." I said, I'm fine. I just need the toilet. And he said, you died. And I was like, what? Like it was so weird to me.
Yeah.
But they helped me to the bed. I rested for a couple hours. But the first thing that started happening is I started seeing the feline head with the female body second.
Mm.
She appeared to me in the armoire, in the wood grain. But then there was a window with these light curtains fluttering in the wind. The window was open, the Nile Valley, lush green valley, bright blue sky, and the air coming in. I'm like, that's real. I'm going to look out there. This isn't real. That's real. Mm-hmm. So it took me quite a while, but now everything was open. It was blasted open.
Wow.
That day I flew from Luxor to Cairo, and in Cairo I boarded a plane. It was a 12-hour flight. And I got to Cairo, JFK, walking off the jetway. All the people looked like black and white paper dolls.
Wow. I think I read that in your description on the website. Yeah. Wow.
Sleepwalking. And it was grief, and it was anger, and it was fear and depression. And in my mind at the time, I thought, man, I don't want to be in the US. This is the vibration here. But then as I slowly, came out of this whole phase, I had to acknowledge I was living in the land of paper dolls. I was part of it. And I was stuck there for about 9 months, maybe to a year. Not everybody, it faded where I didn't see the paper dolls anymore, but I was stuck in that zone of depression. And I knew I was. Then I went to about a dozen healers and psychics trying to figure out what the hell happened. Mm-hmm. And they all told me something different. And I went, well, this is some real bugger, and I was mad. I was mad at God. I was mad at the psychics. And then I finally got it, It's up to me to figure out.
Yeah, you had to accept your own experience and interpretation. Yeah. Wow.
That was 1998. So that was before the internet. Yeah. There was no discussion about spiritual awakening. There was no, I had no reference point of the sixth chakra, the third eye, what happened maybe with my seventh chakra. I had no idea that I had stuck energy. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found a healer that told me that was the key. That was the trigger point that launched that next phase of my true inner journey of being able to learn how to manage my energy, close them down, open them up, and do the chakra dance, so to speak. But being the manager of my energy field rather than being a victim to it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like the part of the story. The best part I like is instead of taking you to the hospital, they took you to a bathroom.
Yeah. And that was a wonderful blessing. My friend was crying so hard because a year before that, there were 31 maybe Europeans that were massacred at the temple, not even a mile down the road, Queen Hatshepsut temple. And so the Egyptian law was that if anything happened to any Americans, I guess the US government had an arrangement with them that if anything happened to any American citizens, they would be held to the highest account for that. So the Egyptians would lose their business, they would lose all their family, the entire family would go to jail.
Wow.
And all the people involved with this situation would all go to jail. They would lose everything. And so that's, I mean, I think most Westerners don't understand the magnitude of what that would mean economically in terms of the ripple effect.
Well, so I have to say this, man, that must have been some powerful weed. Not only knocked you unconscious, it killed you. Wow.
Well, I think here's the dynamics. I had done a 30-day detox before I traveled to Egypt. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I had all the tests done because I thought maybe I had a weak heart. Maybe I discovered that, this pushed me out, but maybe, because most people say that pot wouldn't do something like that, right? Or there was something, mixed with it. This was back in 98. Right? So Egypt was known for some really intense stuff. I was extremely sensitive. I had a 2-week journey, spiritual journey of awakening and opening to my senses. And my doctor told me when I had all the battery of tests, he said, your amino acids are low, but he said, you could have been dehydrated. Just a simple thing like that, the pot, the dehydration, and just knocked you out. So
it's possible in an arid desert-like climate. Yeah, that's. Mm-hmm. Well, I have to ask you. So this NDE near-death experience shot you through the cosmos and opened you up to understanding the all that is. You are a psychic and a clairvoyant. And when did these abilities kick in? Did it come in combination with your NDE?
Well. Yes, I think that blasted open my third eye and my seventh chakra. So I was getting information from all angles. I was so debilitated when I came home, I couldn't go to a market. I couldn't go get my groceries. So I had to find someone. I started to learn how to start clearing energy. Clearing my energy. I had no intention whatsoever. I remember telling my teacher that, don't think I'm going to do this professionally. Hell no. I remember her laughing at me like, oh yeah, right. Okay. But I had to just learn. I just had to do it to save myself. I couldn't function, and I didn't dare go see a psychologist. I figured, you know what? They're going to lock me up and throw away the key. So I went the alternative route because I had already been burned by the doctors, right, in the medical system. So I figured, you know what, I need a different route here. So after about a year of processing and clearing, and I would say that is key for everybody on their journey. It's not about how your gifts open. It's about releasing the unconscious blocks, the programming, the set of belief systems that are limiting us and, keeping those natural parts of us from opening. They're there. They're perhaps dormant or camouflaged and just ready to rock and roll when you have a frequency that can support it. And, I often talk about people that just want to open that third eye, right? And open that pineal gland and all that. Well, here's the trick though. If your other chakras aren't balanced and healthy and functioning in full harmony, it's like, well, what would you do with a third arm if you don't have use of the other two? Or they work in harmony. You don't just flip a switch and turn it on. If you do that, you're asking for trouble.
Well, and too, what you're saying too, everything is energy. You learn that, especially when you first got acupuncture, we have blockages in our energy field, in our chakras. And I've had acupuncture done for me, and it most definitely does work because it hits the meridian points of energy. But what you're saying about chakra clearing, and um, I just consider myself just a normal guy, but last fall I went down to Florida to a 3-day spiritual retreat with Carol Collins, the Pittsburgh medium, and she did an entire weekend of energy clearing and paradigm shifting, and it was pretty amazing. And I spent a whole weekend with the master teachers, ascended teachers, and there were about 10 of us. And it really is amazing when you learn about, the clarity of your own chakras. It's so important. And I think that what I read too, doing some research on there, you said that you've learned that from the classic approach to healing is wrong. And that has a lot to do with what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely. Right. And it's not just reciting affirmations, or, I'm going to think positive, or wanting it to open, and even doing listening to, 528 megahertz when you sleep, and it's just going to magically happen. I'm sorry. That's just kind of fake news. It's fake spiritual news. It'll help you. It'll help relax. It'll help you get closer to it, perhaps. But we're all living in. I read this great book called Mind Virus once, and man, it takes your understanding of just how much we're programmed. I like to tell the story that imagine you're an Android and your mom is an iPhone. And your soul or your spirit comes into the human body, you're conceived, and then you begin to grow as a fetus in your mother's womb. And that fetus is pure energy. And all it does is, as it's growing, it continues to match the vibration that it is in. Because as an energy being, we match. It feels warm, it's safe. We're picking up all mom's belief systems, all of her thoughts, her experiences, and we're carrying that in our energetic field. And then we're born, we match dad's energy and our siblings and school and teachers and. Well, then at puberty, we begin to rebel. And really what that is a trigger point. The soul's you're trying to get back to your soul's blueprint, what you came here to do. Yeah. So you start pushing away unconsciously those energies that you've absorbed. Some people, some cultures don't do it as quick and or don't, and may never find their true purpose or path as a result, because they're a combination of many different paths. So the idea is to become as condensed with your own spiritual vibration. And as that comes together, we reclaim who we are and connect and allow that to flow. That's where the power of the law of attraction comes in, because you become so incredibly magnetic. All your abilities are turned on and you manifest in alignment with your purpose. You still have free choice. You get to say yay or nay.
So what you're saying, too, I've done a lot of reading and research on this recently, and information has literally been downloaded to me that how much from the time we're born until we're 7, when everything, we're in that brainwave state. I believe it's delta, the lowest vibrating brainwave is the egoic driven world wants you to stay limited. It doesn't want you to realize that you are a co-creator with God and with the universe, and that all that is available to you. And so the ego wants us to stay suppressed, and we're fed by our parents and teachers and institutions and governments all of this limiting stuff into our paradigms, which become in our subconscious. And of course, if we awaken from that, then the ego is no longer going to exist, and we're going to awaken to our true understanding of ourselves. How, especially now in the current time of the craziness and the chaos of the world, we're seeing the ego dominated society pushing that on people more and more. I mean, but you're right. There's people are awakening to it. I mean, where do you think it's going to go?
I really can't say. I've been telling my clients for over 5 years. Well, before COVID hit, it was over 5 years, how important your immune system is. Mm-hmm. The immune system. I didn't know why I was saying that, right? And now we find ourselves with sorting through this. I feel like we're in this mass reconstruction project, and it's a slow demolition. And where the pieces and how it's going to drop or, fall, anyone knows. I'm not the detonator, and I don't know, the formula. All I know is, however it unfolds, we more than ever need a strong connection to clear insights and intuition, to be able to call a spade, and to be able to identify the right choice more than ever, because the confusion is amping up as much as the awakening part and the opportunity is amping up, right? So we're in this push-pull intensity, and it's intense, not like when I was waking up. I mean, my friends and family thought I was a freak because nobody did detoxes. Nobody was doing the type of things I was into, or ignoring the doctor. Well, they ignored me. They turned their back on me. But you see, so now it's accelerating. And so I think more than ever, we need our spiritual teachers. We need a teacher that's clear, grounded, and proven. Because I had this meditation in Egypt one time, and it was in 2009. And I asked, what is this great awakening all about? Please talk to me. Tell me. I could read what some people had written in all the books. I wanted my information. And my guides appeared behind me and told me, imagine today you're a caterpillar and tomorrow you're a butterfly. And Carl, I reflect on that all the time. Today I'm a caterpillar. The freedom, the lightness, the colors, the smells, the, effortless. And the voice said to me, and beware, there will be many charlatans among you. Mm-hmm. So that is what we're facing. Spiritual teachers are popping up. They're not necessarily the person that you think they are. Let's just leave it there. And so I think highly important in this process of awakening to really vet and get to know, or, and the other problem that people are doing is they're jumping around. They're going watching 50 YouTube channels, or, how many Facebook pages, and reading all the books. It's not about that. We're stepping into a time where it's due. We're go time. You don't have time to watch and play around anymore. You got to dive in.
And I think that goes back to the main question, the main mission of this show, World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment, is why now more than ever are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, enlightening, and metaphysical? And really, you answered in a way saying, well, this is what we've got to do now. This is why, there really are. We may have charlatans out there. We always will. But overall, the light workers and the people like you, the mediums and the psychics, are stepping up their game. We have to, because we know, like you said, it's go time. We've got to do it now. And you have to you can't dwell the law of attraction. If we keep saying, oh, this COVID situation sucks, I hate this guy, blah, 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 and just more of that is going to be sent to you. So if we focus on love, peace, unity, truth, and oneness, well, then more is going to be sent to us. And thanks to people.
And when I was in that early phase, I didn't think of peace and oneness.
Right.
I swear to God, I only wanted to be happy.
Yes.
I wanted to get out of my misery. I was in so much pain and depression and funk. I hated everybody and everything. I fired everybody, my family, my friends, my hobbies. And so I was miserable. And so I've been there. I know how debilitating that can be. And you can't see where you're going. That's why having a teacher that's going to be there for you and help you through that puddle that you're melting into is key to really have a significant and well, again, we all choose our path, but to me, you just cut so much time. You cut so much lost time, I should say, to getting to what you want. And we want what we want, whatever that might be. It's not, there's no judgment on what we manifest.
Well, just to remind the viewers and listeners, we were talking to Amirah Hall. She's an amazing clairvoyant and medium. She's a psychic, not a psycho. I love that part. We've covered so much territory here, and I do want to ask this. You had this amazing near-death experience, and I'm sure it's way more common than we hear. Many people watching or hearing this have undergone NDEs. My question is, I've always wondered, is it necessary for a human being to go through a cathartic catastrophe-like experience like an NDE in order to awaken, or can you make a conscious choice to do so in your normal life?
Absolutely, and that's what I help people do. Take the journey without the crisis. And coming to Egypt with me, that's not necessary to have a near-death experience while you're there. In fact, we encourage not. There's always a part of us that, as we shed belief systems, there's parts of us that die, but it's not an absolute, complete, so there's a difference between a spiritually transformative experience without having an OBE or an NDE, out of body or near death.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think, yeah. And the more teachers, more light workers that we have doing this work, I think it is facilitating the ease of that process. So the vibration on the planet is increasing. Right. And so many more of us doing this work together. I think that's also key.
I'm real curious about this. So you had this NDE and a big opening to understanding all in the unseen realm. What was it like? Now you actually connect to spirit and to people who transcended to the 5D and beyond. What was it like the first time you experienced that? Were you scared? Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't. I was perplexed. I was a little bit uncertain, a lot of it uncertain. It took me some time to trust it. And then as I got clearer connections, I learned some tools and developed some tools to refine that even more, where I could be absolutely certain who it was. That's why as a medium, I'm evidential. I give examples, like this person used to always have their hair done, or they were a smoker, or they had these fluffy slippers. So there's something that proves to you it's them. Because we can all guess, and we're all psychic. Yeah. And so in my book, I talk about the actual experience of the ND, where I plugged into and how I found all of the information. It showed me that everything that exists is love. And so my continual journey is plugging into that frequency, keeping my vibration high, because I know that when I'm in alignment, when it's high, when I'm closest to that vibration, everything flows. And that's what we're all striving for, I think, is to learn how to master that. You're in the human body.
Well, I have to ask you too, I see you mentioned that you have two books, actually, Manifesting Miracles 101, and the other one is The Essential Guide to Spiritual Awakening. Can you give us a little insight into those books?
Well, the Manifesting Miracles 101, I wrote as a guidebook for my students. So it's all my mentoring program in a nutshell, that breaks down the chakras, and we go through a journey of exploring them and using specific exercises to clear them. and practices. Whereas the Essential Guide to Spiritual Awakening is what you can expect in spiritual awakening, what the process is, why it's happening, and what I saw on the other side. And how is that relevant to here and now in my journey here and what I do? I've been doing this work for 22 years because of that information, because I know that the most important aspect to who we are on our journey is having clear energy. I call it like a timeline. And so if those timeline is all interrupted, that I actually, my review was a timeline of my life. And I could see where all that stuck energy actually created my illness, created my dis-ease, my dysfunction. And so then I started to put all the dots together. I didn't know in 1998 that was the quantum field. I had no words for it yet. And so as that, Deepak Chopra started coming on the scene and reading and connecting with this, I'm like, oh, I was there. I get it, So it all starting to click. And, it wasn't immediate. More and more information just kept downloading to me. Mm-hmm. When my body could really contain it. When I was so stuck in that low vibration, I had work to do before all of the, powerful connections and information could come through. It was almost like a little archive of information that was then downloaded to me and like, bloop, there it is, dropped in. Drag and drop.
This has been such a cool conversation. Amirah, thank you for sharing all of these amazing, beautiful stories. And you are one of those people that is shining a beacon of light in love and truth and helping people do the same. Thank you for doing what you do. I see that your website, you offer life mastery courses. You have a trip that people can go with you to Egypt this year. And what is your website where they can go and find out about this?
Yeah, it's www.amirahhall.com, and that's AMIRAH. 2 H's and 2 L's. And I also want to mention I have a virtual weekly small group event. So you can sign up and come and join me and receive some messages and any information that you're looking for. So it's every Wednesday, and I have varying times for people around the world. So that's where we get to connect and meet.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sign up for that. That sounds cool. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You are a beautiful lady, beautiful person, and so appreciated. What an amazing story. Thank you again for sharing. And all I can say is namaste. Thank you, my beautiful friend.
Thank you, Carl, for all of what you're doing and holding and having this platform for us to ground through and connect. I think that too is raising the vibration. So thank you so much.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in each and every episode of this podcast, World Awakenings, as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that all the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment everyday life. Much love and light to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in.